how are we doing? Good? Okay. This next talk is about one of the biggest hidden drivers of burnout, disengagement and turnover in today's workforce, anxiety. Our speaker is Dr. David H. Rosmarin, a Harvard Medical School professor and Chief Clinical Officer of the LINCS Network, where his teams have worked with over 50,000 individuals, families, and organizations. He's the author of Thriving with Anxiety, 9 Tools to Make Your Anxiety Work for You, which was featured by Oprah's Book Club, Good Morning America, and the Mel Robbins podcast. His award-winning TEDx talk, How to Make Anxiety Your Friend, has been viewed more than 1 million times. Today, he will challenge how we think about anxiety at work and empower us with a proven 4-step process to harness the power of anxiety to enhance awareness, connection, resilience, and innovation. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Rosmarin.
How are y'all doing today? You're not feeling anxious? I'm a little anxious. I am definitely a little anxious. Especially now that I have to come through on 2 things, give you a completely different perspective on anxiety and give you 4 tools to transform this emotion that you all feel into something positive. Let's start by taking your temperature. I'm a clinical scientist. I want to know where we're at. Take out your phones, which have been silenced. Scan that QR code. This is an anonymous survey. I want to know, as HR professionals, what happens when someone comes to you, someone comes to your management and says, you know, I'm feeling anxious. What does that bring up for you? Great responses. My favorite is dread, fear, concern, worry, stress, nervous, and then like a little bit of understanding and empathy mixed in, because like, hey, it's HR. Like, you have to have some of that, right? But it's really uncomfortable when someone says, I feel anxious. I didn't see people in the back like getting all hot and anxious, thinking about this. And recently I was consulting with a CEO on this topic. I asked her that question, like, what happens when someone in your team says they feel anxious? You could feel the energy that she all of a sudden started to experience. Like, I could almost, sense how anxious she was. And she said there are 3 things that come up. 1, I'm concerned that people are not going to be as productive. I'm going to have to let them off. Number 2, my benefits costs are going to increase, and management won't like it. My board will not like that. My P&L is going to suffer. It's a very honest, candid conversation. And the 3rd thing she said is that there might be legal exposure, because now that somebody has disclosed to me the A word, anxiety, I can't do anything in order to remediate the situation. Now my hands are tied. I get it. This is an uncomfortable subject. Yet you've all come here for a reason. I give talks on this subject for a reason. We're anxious beings. And that doesn't mean that we're broken, and that doesn't mean that something's wrong with us, and that doesn't mean that even at the corporate level, we have to treat all anxiety as a problem. It's something that has to be addressed, but it's not always a clinical issue that requires a 4-alarm fire. That's not what it is. It's a signal. It's information. It's an emotion. It's part of who you are. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's a problem. I came to this conclusion through my own experience with anxiety. I had studied this subject professionally for 20 years and treated more than 10,000 people at the beginning, and then at the beginning of the pandemic, everything changed for me. My clinic in New York had 500 active patients at the time. We had 50 staff, and all of a sudden we have to move to telehealth in 2 weeks. I'm panicking because my license is on the line. We have all these patients who are coming in. There are there's talk and chatter about anxiety and depression and substance use and suicide increasing. And I'm like, what on earth is going to be with all these patients who are under my care, with all the staff who are there? Like, from a financial perspective, from a clinical perspective, this is a disaster. And every time I'm glancing at my phone, I'm like having heart palpitations. I'm like, I'm supposed to have mastery over this. Like, what's going on? Anyhow, what happened was an incredible thing. Incredible. I turned back 3 months into the pandemic, and I realized that the patients who had come in with anxiety disorders, clinical anxiety that warranted professional treatment prior to the pandemic, were actually doing really well. And then I'm like, hey, maybe I'm just an ace therapist. It's just me. But no, it wasn't. I asked my staff, and they're like, yeah, like the same thing's happening to us. So I'm like, okay, great, it's just my clinic. No, so I started asking my colleagues in other departments and other areas around the world, and they were all telling me the same thing, that patients who came in with clinical anxiety prior to March 2020 were actually doing very well in May and June and July of 2020. So then I'm like, what's going on here? And after the pandemic, I geeked out and I wrote an empirical scientific paper on this. And actually, we put this in. It's freely available. This paper. It's fully available online. I couldn't believe the data. All the patients who came in as a group prior to March 2020 who had clinical anxiety disorders did not have a significant increase in anxiety at any point between April and December 2020. Let me say that one more time. The highest risk group of people who had clinical anxiety prior to March, as long as they had come in for one therapy session, did not have a substantial increase, or actually any discernible increase in anxiety between April and December 2020. Show of hands, how many people here had no anxiety increase between April and December 2020? So I realized something. When you have anxiety and learn what to do, it inoculates you. You actually figure it out. And at that point, it's almost like you're invincible. Maybe not invincible. But you learn how to channel it forward. And that's what our patients did. I want to make an important caveat here. Now, sometimes anxiety gets the better of us to the point that it interferes with your life. If you can't get out of bed, if you can't go to work, if you can't function, if your kids can't function, that's called clinical anxiety. I think it affects about 4 or 5% of the population. But if you look, and including our workforces, but if you look at anxiety rates today, and you're going to read in the New York Times or anywhere else about 20%, 30%, 50%, that's not clinical anxiety. That's the emotion of anxiety that we all experience. The 4 steps that I'm going to give you today are not enough for clinical anxiety, but they are enough for dealing with the emotion. And even if you have clinical anxiety, they will help. Most of the anxiety that we have at work, it's not clinical. Is this a familiar scene in your workplaces? It sure is in mine, where people are up in arms, and they're uncomfortable, and they're debating, and they're worried about their jobs, or about the financials that are coming, or about AI. Who here is not worried about AI? You're not worried about AI? Okay, because if you're not worried about AI, I am worried about you. Okay, good. Is there anyone here who's not worried in some degree about the world today? Thank God. That's anxiety which is not a flaw. That's anxiety which is not a disorder, and it's not a disease. It's part of being human. It's part of living in the day-to-day. I call it corporate anxiety, that's fine. Corporate America is misdiagnosing anxiety. Anxiety is an emotion, and it can help you like all of your emotions, like happiness and sadness and shame. These can help you. They're not bad. They're not your enemy. Anxiety is not your enemy. And it can help you in 4 ways. I'm going to give you 4 ways it can help you and 4 steps to transform your life. Anxiety can make you more aware. It can make you more aware of what's going on in the world. If you have a restless night before a major deadline and you're feeling anxious, you are going to be aware of what you have to say, of what you have to do, of what has to go into that report, of what has to go into that presentation. That is your opportunity to interact with the world in a positive way. It's not a random set of emotions. It's a way of channeling up your energy. We call it the fight or flight system. It's adrenaline. I don't know if you noticed, if you had no adrenaline, you wouldn't be here today. You would have died, shortly after birth. It makes us assess risk more accurately. It makes us more aware of what we can do and what we can't do. And to communicate with more empathy and to be more aware of other people. This is the edge of greatness, not necessarily a problem. But as soon as we call it anxiety, we run for the hills. So when we feel anxious, we need to understand what's making us anxious in the first place. Years ago, I was consulting with the CFO of a company who could not sleep. I'm like, is this clinical anxiety? I don't know. They're going through a merger, so I'm like, maybe not. Let's suss this out. And she was just beside herself with anxiety. Like, I don't know if this is a good idea. Something's just setting me off. So my first card to play, usually when people feel anxious and they're in corporate, is push forward. Push forward, embrace it. And I did. But her anxiety kept getting worse. As the deadline for the merger continued to approach, she kept getting more and more anxious. So at that point, I'm like, you know what? Let's take a different tact here. What are you anxious about? Just spell it out for me. Even if it sounds crazy, just say it. And she was actually picking up on a number of hidden liabilities in the merger, including malfeasance. She was picking up on the fact that she couldn't trust the people she was about to get into business with. We did a deep discovery and called off the wedding, and that saved her company and probably saved the other person as well. Anxiety is not always a bad thing. It can clue you in to when you really have to take action. Anxiety can also help to create more connection on your teams. This is the greatest missed opportunity in corporate America today. We do not talk about our emotions, and as a result, we're stilted and we don't have real connection. And that's what we are all seeking, right? There's a leader I worked with who's director of a large healthcare organization who had a very simple approach. She would have a weekly stand-up and talk to her teams and she would ask them, how do you feel this week? Red, yellow, or green? But the key is that she always went first. She always said how she was feeling first. Very risky. Even more risky, sometimes she felt red. Because there was stuff happening in the world. There was stuff happening in her personal life and in the team. And that made her feel uncomfortable to the point that she talked about it. And everybody else did. And then a new CEO came in and it became really dangerous to be vulnerable kind of thing. So she stopped this practice because she was told not to, left the company, and the entire team fell apart. She was the glue that kept people together. Let me ask you, in your personal life, or even on your teams, who are you closest to? Who's the person who you are closest to at work? Let's talk about just at work. Imagine that person in your mind. Now, second question. Who is the person who you have shared the most of your emotions with at work? Almost always it's the same person. Sharing our emotions creates connection, and it makes us human. And when anxiety is something we're allergic to, we don't talk about it. But it's not always something to fear. There are difficult moments in corporate America. There are difficult moments in world history. There are difficult moments in the ebbs and flows of any organization and in any human being's life. And when you get that email, or when someone on your team gets that voicemail, or that message, or that news flash that comes across with something terrible, can they just say, I'm having a hard time? And can they get picked up by their colleagues in a way that matters, in a way that creates connection? That's what anxiety is. Okay, number 3. Anxiety can fuel your performance. Now, this is something in corporate we're actually not bad at. I've worked with dozens of high-growth companies, leaders, and there's always a clear pattern that emerges. which is that the people who are doing the most, who are sending that 11:30 p.m. Slack message, who are tuned into what's going on, who are reading every single word in a prospectus, or fully prepared for whatever is happening next, they're usually the most anxious. That anxiety pushes them, I should say pushes us, if I'm being autobiographical, it pushes me, to be detail-oriented, to get my game on, to publish those papers, to be part of the team. It doesn't block progress, it pushes us forward because we're anxious. And this is actually a gift. What about employees who are unfazed? People who really aren't anxious at all. They're like, what time is our meeting again today? Right? There's a couple options. Either they really don't care about your company, or they're narcissistic and posting on Charm. Let's be honest. Either way, it's not a good thing. Anxious employees are great. Honestly, if I could profile what would be a fantastic employee, anxiety would be one of the features I would want. Because they care, and they're detail-oriented, and they're reliable, and they're worried about what I think about them. That's a good thing, in some ways. Obviously, there's a point of diminishing return, but that's for another talk. There are two things that you need to do with your anxious employees. This is not the 4 steps, but this is just like an extra gift that I have to give you. When people feel anxious, don't rush to fix it. Don't rush to fix it. When people are anxious at work about a work project, do 2 things. 1, validate. Say it makes sense that you feel anxious about that. This is a big project. You care about your work. That's a good thing. And then the next second thing is to praise. This is why I hired you. This is why you're part of our team. It's because our mission matters. Our project is something you care about. You really are investing yourself in this. And that's why your amygdala is firing right now. That's why you're sweating. That's why you're having a fight or flight response. Because this matters. Validate that it makes sense why they feel anxious. And 2, praise them for feeling that way. It's that simple. And when we do that, the whole conversation changes. We're not avoiding this and concerned about benefits and concerned about legal liabilities. We flip the script and turn this into an asset. I know this is a tough week. That's why you are here, to embrace this challenge, because I know you can, and I know you care. And we're going to do this together. Validate and praise. Finally, driving innovation. We talked about AI before. Last year, I spoke at actually my first HR conference. Man, was I anxious. Wow. Whew, I was so anxious for that conference. But it was great. It was great. It really got me on my game, and I had to use corporate language for the first time and get out of my clinical and academic bubble. Am I being too autobiographical? I feel like there's way too much quiet in the room. Why are you not? Okay, anyway. I was in the speaker's room, and Dr. Brian Glazer, who's the Chief Talent and Learning Officer at Google, was there. And he saw on my badge, it said Harvard Medical School. He's like, what are you doing here? Fair question. I'm like, well, I'm a clinical psychologist. He's like, oh yeah, that makes sense that you would be here. I'm like, why? He's like, well, there's how many mental health problems there are in corporate America today. And anyway, we had a nice conversation. He said, what are you talking about? I said, anxiety. He said, oh, I got a story for you. And later on in the day, in his own session, he told you the story. He told everyone the story, so I know it's a public matter. He said something crazy. He said that he was there when Google was developing Chrome, Maps, and Gmail. How many of you have at least one of those apps on your phone today? He said the anxiety was palpable because they didn't know at that time that everyone in the world would end up with those apps on their phone. They were high-risk projects with huge investments and no clue whether they would actually be successful. And he said the anxiety was palpable, and what they did is they used it forward. They said, we don't know, and that's the point. If we're not innovating, then what's the point of Google? And it helped those teams to muster up the courage to face uncertainty in the world. How many of you have uncertainty in your world? In the age of automation and acceleration, there is so much we don't know. Let's be honest. In 2 weeks, the whole world might look different, let alone in 6 months from now. and in 2 years, like, AI is teaching itself about the next AI, which is going to be something else AI. Like, what on earth is going on? Right? It's hard to get your head around. But let's be clear about one thing. As amazing as AI is, its incredible ability to summarize data, and to code, and to execute on projects, there's one thing it can't do. I see why you're anxious. It can't care. Well, yeah, that's true. That's another thing it can't do. But it's actually related to this. You can't innovate. It can give you back tenfold what you put in, but it doesn't give you something new. To figure out the next step, that's human. That's something which is uniquely human. Empathy is another one. The reason why they're related, by the way, is because in order to empathize well, you have to get out of your head and into the really present and future of that person who's in front of you. So they're related constructs. The opportunity we have is to get back to real innovation of what's the value that we truly bring and our employees truly bring in this world. Not the jobs that we do, but being ourselves, being fully present, and having that one idea, maybe over the course of an entire year. It might be one sentence that creates our value. And that's totally fine. It's not all about productivity. It's also about being human. You ready for the 4 steps? You're not ready for the 4 steps? Yeah. I didn't say what the 4 steps? You don't know? Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you anyway, because I kind of need them myself right now. The 4 steps are as follows. Repeat after me. Identify.
Identify.
Share.
Share.
Embrace.
Embrace.
Let go.
Let go.
Great. After 20 years of doing research and clinical work on this subject, this is all I've got. This is it. These 4 steps are everything I know about anxiety in one slide. It's not complicated, and it's not therapy. It's just 4 steps. And it's also an upcoming book I have. Okay. The first is to identify your anxiety. When you feel anxious, not if you feel anxious, let's be honest, you will feel anxious. Identify, stop, and take inventory. What are you anxious about? Usually the first thing you do when you feel anxious is drink. That's fine. Good idea. I was going to say pull out your phone, but okay. You can have a beer too. You pull out your phone, you distract yourself. You do anything you can to stop feeling that anxious. Go for a walk, calm down, play a video game, I don't know, whatever it is, but stop. Just stop, okay? If you feel anxious, within 24 hours of that moment, take a 10-minute period where you just think, what was I so anxious about? Yesterday, I was actually talking to Alexi about this, I had 3 points of very significant anxiety. There's crazy stuff happening. And I got anxious. And before I went to bed, I'm like, okay, 1, 2, 3, what was I anxious about? I just made a list. Immediately I felt better, but also it showed me that my emotions were pulling me into the reality of what I have to deal with that day, actually today. In fact, after this, I have a lot to do. Now I'm all anxious. Okay. Identify what you are anxious about. And in corporate, talk to people. What are you anxious about? What's this about? I understand your feelings, but like, just tell me what it is. If you're not sure, let's have a meeting later. I'm here. But do it for yourself first, and then you can do it for others. 2, share. Just talking about anxiety creates more connection, creates more emotion, creates more love. And that's what it's here for. Anxiety is about, we're so used to sharing KPIs and status updates. We don't share our emotions, but that is the opportunity. Yes, there's oversharing. I recently had a post about that, another topic. But sharing anxiety is just about being human in the presence of others. What makes anxiety get really out of control is when you feel that you can't share any of it. Because then you try to stifle it, and then you don't identify it, and then you're in my office. Very quickly. Share your anxiety and make sure, with one person, I would say don't go 3 days without talking a little bit about how anxious you feel with another human being. Ever. Don't ever do that. Number 3, embrace. Embrace, like I said, is the one that we're actually pretty good at in the corporate world. In order to build physical fitness, you need to push against physical resistance. There's a burn That literally creates rips in the muscles, which then get rebuilt, and that is how you build physical strength. How do you build emotional strength? Perseverance. Let me ask you. Whoever you're as kids, how many of you in your kids' school has physical education? I don't know. How many of you have one exercise once a week where kids are encouraged to do something that makes them feel anxious? Your kid goes to a school where the teachers encourage them to do something that makes them feel anxious? I'm signing up. I'm signing my whole family up. We're all coming to your school. It's so un-American to do things that make you feel anxious. But therein lies the missed opportunity. When we embrace difficult things and do things that make our hands sweat a little, that's what builds resilience. You cannot become a resilient human being without doing things that make you feel anxious. That's the reality. So embrace it and encourage your teams to embrace it. This, I think, is the greatest opportunity. And finally, maybe the hardest of all, is to let go. If we think back to what we're really anxious about, if I think back to what I'm anxious about and have to deal with later today, and if I'm being really honest, can I control the outcomes? You know what the answer to that question is? I cannot. I can predict it, I can do my best, I can put my best foot forward, but at the end of the day, I can't control that outcome. By embracing that, by letting go, I actually find something more important than anything else. Myself. Because it's not about what happens, it's about am I doing the best that I can in that context? And the uncertainty doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. It's the hardest step and the most important. Let's go through the 4 steps one more time just to make sure you remember them. Identify, share, embrace, let go. I have a gift for you, and I'd like your feedback on today's talk. So please scan that QR code. And there is a 10-minute video which I have prepared for you. You can share it with your teams, you can share it with your family, you can share it with your friends. Which is about the 4 steps. So you can go over this. Thank you very much.